So hi, everyone. For those of you watching the recording from the Growth Network, welcome. We're here with Odette from Ottawa, from the Master Gardeners there. And Odette's going to be talking with us today about seed saving. So we started off with a little fun, silly check-in activity. If you're following along on the recording, I encourage you to just take a minute to check in with yourself and figure out what seed you're feeling like. We just did that as a group here together. Now I'm going to introduce Odette. So Odette discovered her passion for horticulture in her first ornamental garden, which she tended with the help of her father at their home in Saint Anne de Beaupré. I hope that I didn't totally butcher that. My French is horrible. In
It was
Quebec.
good.
Okay. I was in France recently, so maybe I'm working on it. Her interest in horticulture and ecology intensified as she studied plant science at the Institut de Technologie Agricole. After graduating in 1980, Odette worked for 4 years at the Montreal Botanic Garden before relocating to Toronto, where she has worked in a member municipality of York Region until retirement. Odette continued experimenting with varieties and techniques in her own gardens, learning from Nikki Jabour's principles in particular. She became a master gardener in 2013. She shares her love and knowledge of plants with York Region gardeners through Lake Simcoe South and Toronto Master Gardeners advice clinics, giving workshops including a range of organic gardening topics and cold season production. Since relocating to the Ottawa region to be closer to her daughter and granddaughters, Odette has presented to several local gardening groups, the Ottawa Public Library Gardening Program, the Ottawa Home and Garden Show, several seniors residences, both in English and French. So huge thank you, Odette, for being here. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen and pass it over to you, Odette.
Okay, let's get into this right now. Oh, what happened? Let's go back. There we are. Okay. Oh, I see. Okay, hang on now. I'll move this aside. Anyway, so hello, everyone. Welcome to the seed saving presentation as a way of preparing the future. I'm really, really happy to be with you tonight. I think it's great that I can be here in the heart of seed saving season. It doesn't get any more apropos to be seed saving in the middle of September. It's exactly the right time to do it all. So it's a good thing you're watching this. And I'm hoping that people that are in different time zones can apply the principles that we're going to be talking about tonight as well. So that I didn't realize, Katie, that you're actually in Victoria. I did not realize you're there. So anyway, welcome, and I'm very happy to be here with you. Saving your seeds, saving seeds will make your garden more sustainable. And it will save you money too. Why not, right? So for the past decade, seed saving has been in the hands of breeders, specialists of all kinds, big agri-business. And so the art of seed saving and plant improvement, plant selection has almost been forgotten. People like you and me, we didn't know how to do it. But there's a change. There's been a return to grassroots, you could say. And people are getting interested again in gardening and particularly in food production. So we're seeing more and more of that. So it's changing, right? Slowly people are learning the trade again. So it could be because of COVID. I mean, I know we're still talking about COVID. It's 4 years later. We're still talking about COVID, but it had a huge impact on all of us. The food supply chain in particular was disrupted at that time. And I think a lot of people kind of got into food anxiety, and that's why so many people are interested in gardening and food production, right? So I think that's where it comes from. And it's not the only time that the food supply chain was disrupted. There's been many other times that it's happened since then. I mean, the Port of Vancouver, where you are, was shut down for, I think it was a couple of years ago. Last year, there was the St. Lawrence Seaway. I mean, those are key components of the food distribution, right? So that's how people became interested all of a sudden to start gardening. That's where it comes from, I think, that food insecurity. Anyway, okay, so my goal tonight, the goal of my presentation, I hope you embrace it. The goal of my presentation is to enable us, you and me, to participate into making our community more resilient to the food supply chain disruption, whatever the cause may be. It could be, again, like the CNCP was going on strike. You know, I mean, that's another huge actor into transporting food in this country. So that's what I'm hoping, that will make our community more resilient if we all participate, if we exchange seeds with our friends, our family, and the community at large. And I have a few ideas there. I don't know if it's going to apply to all time zones. I guess I'm mostly going from the Ottawa experience, but I'll talk about seed libraries in particular, where it's a good location to exchange seed. Okay, before I go further, I was curious to see if anybody in the room is saving seed already. Tammy, are you saving seed? Lexus is saving seed. Okay, good job. I see Kate is saying yes, maybe she's saving seed too. Okay, so I just wanted to say from my experience, I find seed saving really, it becomes addictive almost. It's silly to say, but it's like it's really hard to walk by a seed pod or fruit or something and just say, you know, I wonder if there's a seed inside there, and I wonder if I could start a plant with that next year. So this might happen to you. It's like a heads up. It might happen. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So there is a presentation plan. And by the way, all the photos have been identified at the bottom as to who the credits go to. So this is my friend Maxine took pictures of some zinnias. I find it's important to give credits to people that take photos nowadays. I'm just saying that. Okay, so presentation plan. So we're going to talk about why save seed. Why should we bother? We're going to talk about what is a seed. So that's going to be a little bit of the technical part of the presentation, but understanding the nature of a seed helps you know, to work with it afterwards. Do all plants produce seed? Well, maybe not. We'll see. What do you think? But anyway, okay. Then we'll talk about heirloom versus hybrid, and that's an important distinction. Okay, and we'll talk about the equipment. And then we'll go over the common crops like tomatoes, peppers, lettuce, cucumbers, squash, peas, and beans, and also native plants and ornamentals. We'll talk about storing seeds and seed libraries. That's what I was telling you about. And I'm going to give you homework with that one, actually. We'll talk about CD Saturday and seed banks and seed vaults. Okay, moving forward. So why save seed? You might ask yourself, why go to the trouble? Although it's no trouble at all to save seed, but why should I do this, right? So the first main reason is to the seed that you will save will be naturally adapted to your own environment, to your own conditions, your own growing conditions, in your town, in your city, wherever you are. So the information that's stored in those seeds, in that DNA, it determines the plant's future acclimatization, right? It will be a step ahead of a seed that you would have purchased, for example, from a big box store. So that seed that you are producing is knowing. It knows what to expect almost. It sounds silly, but it's in the DNA. So the information that's in there, you know, makes a difference. The second reason is sustainability and self-reliance. So because we're on Zoom right now, so I'm just going to go from my own experience. It's really hard, but maybe if any of you, if what I'm saying resonates, don't hesitate to put a thumbs up in the and not the chat, but wherever you're, on your screen there. So I'm going to tell you about my own experience in 2021. Of course, the supply chain was totally disrupted, and it was really hard to order seeds from the usual seed suppliers. So, and I'm talking about the Ontario scene right now. It's like, so the, companies that like VCs, for example, who normally supply seeds, there's many of those companies that, a bigger company that supplies seeds, were not able to, they were not able to supply the seeds. This is what happened in 2021. And so people like me that had put in an order, let's say in January, didn't get their order fulfilled until end of April. So by then, the whole scheme of doing like early, like the winter garden, in other words, right, like the cold frame, it was too late. I mean, it's by then you've lost a whole crop, right? So that's the idea that you're not depending on anybody else at that point. If you have your own seed that you've produced, you're not depending on anybody else. And to me, that's an important factor, especially in a world as volatile as the one we're in right now. Historically, it's a necessity for survival. So what do I mean by that? So we live in Canada. We're lucky. We have seeds for sale just about everywhere, right? I mean, you go to a grocery store, there's seed for sale. Hardware stores, like it's everywhere, right? It's easy. But it's not like that in every country. It's not like that in, I guess I'm not going to name any countries, but I'm sure you can picture that some countries certainly don't have all the array, the selection that we have for seed. It's not as easy to find. So for their survival, it's a necessity to save seed. They have to save from year to year. Historically, so I wanted to talk about the early settlers that came to Canada and brought their seed from Europe and started growing the seed and saved their seed in the fall to start again the next year. Okay, so that was for their survival. But hang on now. Before the settlers, there was the First Nations here, and they also saved seed, and they also grew things, and they understood that for their survival, they needed to produce the seed crop in the fall in addition to the crop, right? So the First Nations did it. But now I'd like to bring you back, even way back. Let's go back thousands of years, and let's go back 12,000 years ago, because this is really when seed saving started. And this was a defining time in our human history. That's when we went from the Paleolithic era to the Neolithic era, the agriculture based. It was defining. We became farmers as opposed to hunters and gatherers. So this is an important moment, and seed saving, every time that we save seed in the fall, we're repeating this action that our ancestors did 12,000 years ago. So that's my my third reason. Number 4, sharing with the community. So of course, I was telling you about the building the community's resilience, sharing with with just so many opportunities, like the horticulture societies in particular, Master Gardeners, that everybody seems to organize a seed sale now, and it's great. And so sharing with the community. What I wanted to say as well in that little item is that, so for example, my family loves hot peppers. We love hot peppers. And so we all grow hot peppers, my children, and everybody grows hot peppers. And then we save the seed and we put them in pretty packets. And at, Christmas, then we do this, we put them in stockings, right? So I find that seed makes a great gift. So, I encourage you to prepare seed packets and share with your family. Christmas, whatever the season, whatever birthdays, it's always a good one. Challenge. Not every seed is as easy to save as, I would say, tomatoes or peppers. Those are easy ones, right? But some seeds are tougher. Some of them are like you're dealing with biannual plants, you're dealing with plants that don't bloom, produce seed too often. So let's call it a challenge, bragging rights. If somebody tells me that they've saved, let's say, carrot seeds, I will say, wow, I will say impressive, because carrot seeds is not an easy one. It's a biannual. It takes forever to bloom, and it's a tough one to save the seeds. So bragging rights, let's call it like that. Now, usually I present in horticulture societies, and many people create hybrids. And I'm not sure about you guys, if you create any hybrids. Raise your hand if you do. Okay, I don't see any hands. Okay, so many people take dahlias, for example, and cross them, and or they take daylilies and they cross them, or even tomatoes, or there's just so many different things that you can hybridize and create a new variety. I guess you could call it a new variety, right? And so in order to create that variety, you need to save the seeds. So that's another good reason why you should save your seed. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so what is a seed? What is this? So this is all about propagation, right? It's like a mini course on propagation. And, I've done a year of propagation when I was in university, but we'll do 5 minutes here tonight. So we'll do our best. Okay, so, sexual propagation, obviously, this is the seed business, and we're going to talk about that in a second. We're going to start with the vegetative propagation, and it sounds funny to say, like division, division. So division, many of you have probably done that. If any of you have, let's say, a clump of hostas, and you wanted to create many clumps of hostas, so you take the clump, dig it out, take the blade, or like whatever, the shovel, and then multiply like a whole bunch of little smaller plants. So that's called division. You probably didn't call it vegetative propagation, but that's what it was. So division. Cuttings, and I'm sure many of you did that as well. So let's say you take a vine, like a vine material kind of thing, or you could take an impatiens, let's say, as well, and you cut it and then put it in water or another growing medium. Like it could be perlite, vermiculite, it could be some other growing medium. Layering, I'm not sure. Raise your hand if anybody have tried layering. So I'm just gonna, oh, you did. Okay, interesting. Okay, Kate, very interesting. Okay, so I'm going to explain my method, and if yours is different, maybe type it for me. I'm just curious, maybe. But so let's say a shrub rose. Let's say we take a shrub rose, and we want to create a baby shrub rose. So you would put like a little, you would take a branch, like you would leave it attached to the shrub rose, make a little incision on it, and then put it in the ground, soil on top and a rock on top. And then you keep all that moist for a couple of months. It might take a couple of months to kind of root up, right? So after 2 months, go move the soil aside and check to see if you have roots. And if you do, great, you've succeeded. So let it become, tougher, stronger. And the year after, you can separate this new plant from the mother plant, and there's your layering technique. Is this the same technique that you have? Sorry, Kate?
I did it a little differently. I've tried with tropical plants, more kind of semi-hardwood. And so I did the cut, and then I keep it propped open with a little piece of sterile wood or bamboo, apply a little rooting hormones, and then sphagnum moss, wrap that in saran wrap, tie the ends with some tin foil to keep the light out and the humidity high. And then you cut it once it roots, and then, yeah, just same thing, a little different.
Yeah, Yeah, very good. Thank you very much. And actually, so yes, for Dracaena, for example, that's a good way of doing it, or Dieffenbachia, or that's right. So those are usually indoor plants, but I guess I was explaining for a shrub rose for something that's going to be outside. And, so that's, anyway, that's how we used to do it at the botanical garden. Tissue culture. Okay, so tissue culture is mostly for orchids. Most people use it for orchids, and you usually use a microscope, and you slice a young leaf very thinly, like especially near the main clump, I guess, and you put it on a growing medium, keep it moist, and that's how you end up with a lot of little baby orchids, and that's how it's done commercially, right? So with vegetative propagation, you only have one parent, and the outcome will be totally genetically identical to the parent, totally the same. Sexual propagation, as I was saying, yes, it's about seed, and there are two parents. The pollen will be produced by the father part of the plant, and the seed will originate in the mother side of the plant. And of course, the results now will be totally the same. They'll be sorry, if it's an heirloom variety, it will be the same. But if it's not an heirloom variety, if it's a hybrid, for example, obviously the results will be completely different. So that's the plan there. That's how you do it. Okay, so what is a seed? So I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible, but I think a seed is a source of food, right? We humans use it extensively. So there are seeds with that are called monocot, and that cot part is really, it's the resource, like of the plant. They call it there's a sac of reserve. To cot is a sac of reserve. So there's an embryo and a sac of reserve. So let's say grass, for example, is a monocot. It only has one sac of reserve. Corn's the same. Dicot seeds, like tomatoes, for example, they have two sacs of reserve. So why am I talking about that? Like, what is this, right? Well, so that you know what it is you're dealing with. So those sacs of reserve really have oil, or they have a flour, I guess you could call it, right? So that's how you extract the oil from the usually the oil would be coming mostly from grains, right? So the corn and others like this. But there's also flour that comes from the grains, like wheat and so those yeah, so I'm just looking at my little note here. I'm just saying anyway. So it's starches and oil, right? That's the word starch is what I was looking for. So the starches are in the seed, in the sac of reserve that I'm talking about. Okay, so do all plants produce seed? Okay, so the answer was no. So mosses and ferns do not produce seed. The ferns actually produce spores. So it's a different process altogether to use spores and start. If you were going to start, let's say, a fern, with using sexual propagation, it's a whole process to use the spores. It's rather difficult. It's a lot easier to grow ferns from a vegetative propagation standpoint. Okay, so gymnosperms, so those are the conifers and the cycads, and they produce a cone and with the seed on it, right? So gymnosperm means seed, naked seed, actually. That's what it means. So the seed is not really all that protected from let's say a pine tree. So it produces cones. The seeds are in it, but they're not really sheltered. Not as sheltered as they would be for an angiosperm. An angiosperm is like a tomato, for example, or a maple tree, or like, so they produce a fruit in which the seed is kind of sheltered, right? For a maple tree, obviously, the fruit is not really obvious, but that seed is contained inside that fruit. Tomato seeds, well, that's easy to see that there is a fruit around that. And within the angiosperms, there are annuals and there are biannuals. So annuals, obviously, like tomatoes, they produce a seed every year. And biannuals, like parsley or carrots, will produce seed every 2 years. Or the second year plant, right? I've taken this picture here of the Titan Heirloom. And so that's also known as the corpse flower because it has a bit of a smell. And anyway, so this plant produces seed every 7 years. And no wonder, look at the size of that bloom. It's just so huge. And it takes quite a bit of energy from the plant to go and produce a thing like that, right? So no wonder. So the corpse plant, okay. Okay, so let's discuss heirloom versus hybrid. And if there's one thing that I find important that you retain if you're going to save some seed, you really have to understand if the seed, the plant that you're dealing with, is it an heirloom variety or is it a hybrid variety? And that will dictate the outcome of your effort, So make sure that if you're going to be saving seed, make sure that you're dealing with an heirloom variety, right? What's also known as an open pollinated variety. What do I mean by open pollinated? Like, you hear people, what open pollinated? What is this? Okay, so what this is by opposition to a hybrid. If you do a hybrid plant, like a hybrid variety, you will bag the male part of the flower so that you can pollinate it with another, like, some kind of other plant from another, you'll use the pollen from some other source, right? So you will bag the male part of your plant, right? So that's the opposite of an open pollinated. Open pollinated, you haven't done that bagging, you haven't done any of this, right? Heirlooms and open pollinated, it's kind of the same. It's just an heirloom would be an older variety, right? Maybe something 50 years plus. And sometimes it's even before the agricultural industrialization, right? It can be like if you look at some, there are magazines, right, for heirloom varieties. There are sites for that. And you hear about, tomato varieties that were created 100 years ago, right? So that's what an heirloom would be, but it would also be an open pollinated variety. It's as it's that simple. And yes, usually an heirloom variety is a stable variety, right? It takes 8 years, just to let you know, it takes 8 years to create a stable variety. If you're going to be creating let's say you're going to be crossing some heirloom, let's say, and then you're going to select a few individuals that you like, and then you're going to keep repeating year after year after year and selecting those individuals, and eventually your variety will be stable, and that's 8 years. That's to homologate a variety it takes 8 years normally. Okay, so an heirloom variety is a stable variety, and the seeds will be true to the parent. So you can save those seeds, and you can trust that it will look like the parent, right? A hybrid, of course, a hybrid variety will look different. And so I'm not sure if any of you have bought, let's say, corn, okay, and or beans. They tell you, okay, this is F1, okay, the F1. Okay, what do they mean by F1? So they mean this is the first generation that you have in your hands, right? This is the first, it hasn't been, I guess call it a scientific breeding. It's done like this for a purpose, and this is something you can trust. That F1 is something you can trust. F2 now, it does exist, F2. But that would be a wild card. You don't know what you're getting at that point. You have no idea. So so that's it's being used in certain purposes for certain plants, but generally this is not something you would definitely, you wouldn't do that, right? And I have nothing against a hybrid variety. I really have nothing against it. It's just you got to know it's a hybrid, right? And saving the seed will not be ideal, right? But it's a good idea to, purchase some hybrids if you want. Like, plants they get better sometimes if you want to have a better yield, or if you have a disease in your garden, you may want to control it with a different hybrid selection, to improve the flavor, color, weather tolerance. These are all ways of these are all limitations that you can control somehow using a hybrid. But it's just a hybrid. You're going to have to buy a hybrid every year, because if you save the seed, it's just going to give you an F2, and this is the far west as far as I'm concerned. So you just don't know what it's going to be. Okay. Let's look at the equipment for seed saving. So I know some of you have already saved seed, but anyway, for those of you that haven't tried it, so this would be kind of the equipment that you would normally use. It's definitely plates and a sheet of paper, to clean up your seed afterwards. It's a good place to start. A strainer to rinse your seed, a knife, water. Now, water. I'm going to mention something about water because not everybody has a tap, or not everybody has a well anyway. Here in Manotick, we're on a well. Like I'm in Manotick, in the suburbs of Ottawa, and we have a well. And so our water has been conditioned with a conditioner, and it's got salt in it. So to process our seed, make sure that you use water that hasn't been in the conditioner, so raw, what we call raw water, or you would use rainwater. If you're in the city, the chlorine and all that, it doesn't really affect. I don't find that the chlorine affects the seed that I've seen anyway. But I mean, if you want to be really careful, you may want to put your water that you're going to be using, to let it sit for 24 hours so that the chlorine evaporates. So you may want to do that. Okay, a funnel, paper envelopes. Yeah, so I like to save my seed in paper envelopes, but some people use glass jars, and that's good too. Markers, and now that's of paramount importance. Markers, make sure you write what it is that you've put in those bags, or every steps of the way. Like every step of the way, there's, I always, sometimes I say, oh, I'm going to remember. Well, maybe not. So yeah, try to write things. And yes, I've put pictures there of permanent markers. But there's another kind of marker that's called China marker. And if you guys have, it's worth purchasing, because I find the markers that I'm showing there fade. Actually, it doesn't, after a year or two, that it fades. So if you get a China marker, you can get it from art stores, or sewing stores have them too. Or anyway, they are white and black. And so yeah, China markers, remember that. Okay, toothpick, tweezers, white paper, all that stuff. Okay, the methods for seed saving, and I'm going to go into details, but let's start by saying that there are multiple methods, and if the method that I'm going to present today is not the method that you're practicing already, or maybe this is some, it could be your grandmother showed you how to save seed. It could be a different method, right? So there are traditions, there are cultural practices, and I respect what you do. How, if it works, why not, right? I have a friend who's of Portuguese descent. Her name is Dulcie, and Dulcie has a way of seed saving her tomatoes, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more. But Dulcie she manages to save seed, but it's completely different than what she does, than what I do. It's completely different. So labeling, we've talked about labeling already, but let's say it again. You know, remember to write down what it is that you have. People often ask if they should put their seed in the sun. I like a dry and dark location myself to dry my seed. I've put those little, those are yogurt container covers, and you know, they're, you know, it's like reusing a little bit what we have. And so I just put my seed there and let it dry for a couple of weeks usually before I bag them. Okay. Let's talk about tomatoes. So you need to pick a ripe fruit, right? Obviously, you need to pick a ripe fruit. If the fruit is green, the seed's not going to come off, and it's not mature anyway. So, so pick a ripe fruit. And then the method I'm going to explain is a Master Gardener method. Like, this is what our book recommends that we do. So I'm following this, and it works. And I do it all the time. So, so pick a ripe fruit, squeeze the pulp out and put it in a bowl. And then you add a little bit of water, and then you can use your toothpick and just mix it a little bit. And then you let it ferment for a couple of days. So day one, obviously, you can see it's totally looking like a tomato. Day two, it goes into this black fuzz. And day three, you can see the black fuzz, which is a fungus, has resolved itself, and it's not as bad. And so the reason why we're doing this is to prevent seed-borne diseases. It's there are diseases that you can get that will unfortunately come back the year after, right? So if you allow them to grow this fungus now in the fall, then it's not going to come back next year to haunt you. Let's say that my friend Dulcie doesn't do that. She bypasses this whole thing and just puts her seeds straight into a paper towel, and that's it, right? But I just like to, if we go through this effort, we might as well make it a successful effort. And so I'd like to follow this method, but I respect what she does. Okay. Anyway, then you rinse with clean water. You spread thinly on a paper towel, and you let it dry for a couple of weeks, and then you bag it. And the whole time you've identified what it is that you're dealing with. What kind of tomato is it? Like, you know, you don't want to end up with mystery tomatoes. Okay. Peppers. Peppers, there's nothing simpler than saving pepper seed. It is so simple. You open it, there they are, voila. And you know, you scrape the seed, you put it on one of those plastic dishes, and then you label it. And actually, that year here, I can see the white ones here on this one with the white background. I think I put it on a sheet of paper. I don't even think I put them on a dish. So I didn't rinse them, none of that. Just let it dry for 14 days and then bag it. Simple, very good. Now, tomatoes, warning, there's a lot of varieties that are hybrid, right? So if you're starting them from seed, make sure, like, check your seed to see if it was hybrid or not. But there's a lot of them that are not hybrid, right? So it's worth knowing, though. It's worth knowing. So, okay, continuing with the lettuce. So the lettuce, you have to let it go to seed in your garden. So I think a lot of you have, if you have a vegetable garden, you must have experienced the lettuce going to seed, and it's so frustrating because you wanted to eat more salads, but they've gone to seed, and that's typical. It happens. Picking the right lettuce variety will make a difference, right? There are varieties like the oak leaf lettuce doesn't bolt as quickly, and you'll be able to eat salad, longer with what they call a summer garden, right? A summer variety. The one I have is called salad bowl, and it's kind of a chartreuse color. This one is the picture that I'm showing here is it is a salad bowl. So you can place a white cloth on the ground when you start seeing that fuzzy stuff at the top there. Put a white cloth on the ground and check daily to see if you have any seed that fell there, and you will find seed. And then you let it dry a couple of weeks and bag it. Now I have some lettuce seed heads here. So, it's easy to collect those seed heads. It's very easy to collect them. The problem is cleaning them. And, it really is quite an effort. So, I mean, you let it dry and then you can shake it like this and you'll find at the bottom some seed. So that's how you can multiply. But a lot of people are just, now it's a bit of a trend, I guess, in certain circles. So they just leave the plants until next year. You can leave your plant in the garden like this, and it will grow next year. So you'll have this garden that's totally effortless. You haven't done anything. You'll have lettuce. You'll have spinach. You could do it with what they call ground cherries. So golden berries. Actually, somebody has tried that. Sorrel, beans, peas, tatsoi, all these, I guess you could call the Asian greens, all these will multiply themselves. So no effort whatsoever. And I think it's called permaculture. And you can just have, it's so simple. It may not be exactly in the spot where you wanted them to be, but they'll be there, and you'll be able to have a harvest again. So anyway, I recommend you check that out. Okay, next. Cucumbers. Okay, so you have to grow one of those bad boys here that I have on the on the right side. This is a cucumber. All of a sudden, you'll notice that your cucumbers are not producing anymore. What's going on? Okay, well, you might find one of those cucumbers that's overripe at the bottom. So this is the guy you want to save. This is how you'll get your seed from there. So you need your overripe fruit, and then you open it lengthwise, and then you spread it in a sieve and push it through. Then you'll rinse it. And again, spread it on paper towel, dry 10 to 14 days. So it's not a difficult method, and it works. It doesn't work for seedless cucumbers. Good luck. Okay, so that was cucumbers. The squash. Now the squash, again, you need an overripe fruit. And they tend to be a little bit smelly, right? Yeah, so you will put it in water for 24 hours. So this is a little bit of a different method. Like, it's not like the cucumber, even though it's the same family. So you soak it in water for 24 hours. It's just like the meat and the seed will detach more easily. It just works better, right? And so you rinse it gently, and then you spread it on the paper towel, and again, dry for 2 weeks, and that's that. But I wanted to add something to the squash. So squash is an interesting plant. It's actually a native plant, and that's one of the First Nations, I guess, target plants. Like, that was one of their basic plants, the squash. And it keeps so long, right? It's spectacular. So because it's a native plant, it is visited by its own kind of bees. Believe it or not, squash, there is such a thing as squash bees. And if you grow squash, you will see the squash bees. It's like they appear out of nowhere. Where would they, but they are like a black bee. They look a little bit different than the honeybee, obviously, or other bees. So that's really a specific, the squash bee. And you know what? I should take pictures, and I should I should plug them here and there on my slide, I think. But anyway, so so because of that, because they have their own bee, and it's quite how would I say that, you know, they really attend to the reproduction of those squash. So you end up, if you have more than one variety of squashes, you might end up with more, like if you have a delicata, for example, and acorn, okay. So because of those squash bees, you might end up with a cross, like some kind of hybridized, bizarre looking, like I have a butternut this year. I have some butternut squash that don't look quite like butternut. So, I mean, they're still edible, they're still fine, but they're not 100% looking like an acorn, like a butternut, right? They look a little bit like an acorn, really, but the color of butternut. Anyway, so I'm just saying that you might end up with the mystery squash that you're not 100% sure of what it's going to be. So let's say somebody who's you know, the big seed producers and all that, they are selling a variety, and it has to be true to the names, the variety's name, right? So they have to isolate the crops. They have to isolate them actually extensively. And so, for example, if they're like the peas, usually the peas kind of, they produce, they fertilize inside the flower. It's not even outside. There's no, you never see, you know, pollen from the peas. It's usually done, it's you know, inbreeding plant. So you don't need to isolate them very far to produce a stable heirloom variety, right? So 5 to 20 feet. And so let's say you do heirloom tomatoes. They say you should be isolating them 640 feet if you want to have a truly pure variety. Okay, in my case, I don't do that. I just, you know, I have several varieties of heirloom tomatoes, and I don't think they breed. I don't think they cross or anything. I don't think they hybridize. So they're pretty stable as far as I'm concerned. Sweet peppers are like that too. So look at the some of them are insect pollinated, and like the squash, for example, is one of those that I was telling you about. And so you have to, if you want to have like a true variety that's true to delicata, for example, that you want to sell it, if you want to commercialize your seed, you have to isolate them 1 mile away from another variety of squash. When pollinated, like beet, corn, spinach, you would have to isolate them 2 miles apart to make sure your variety. I mean, you're still going to harvest seed if you just put them in your small garden, that's fine. Like, you know, it's just not going to be 100% reliable that it is a delicata squash, or, you know, it's not going to be exactly. Peas and beans. Okay, so very simple. That's as simple as it gets. This is, yeah, so you just let the seed pods dry, and then you open them up, shell them off, and dry for 7 days, and that's it. That's it. This is snow peas. This one is snow peas. Parsley, okay, parsley is a biannual, and so you just leave your plants in the fall, you leave them there. They will produce seed. They will come back the next year, and they will produce flowers the next year. And when the flowers are sorted out, then you hang them upside down like this, let them dry, and then you rub off the seed. It's very simple to do. So, but you have to wait this extra year, right? It doesn't come off the same year. And you can do Italian parsley like this, or curly parsley, any variety of parsley. By the way, carrot is the same, but carrot is the, you know, that's, carrots is tough. I find it's tough. You know, it's just it's too many birds around. It just you just never see your seed. Okay, so let's go to native plants and ornamentals. So first of all, native plants and ornamentals, usually the seed is so easy. It's so there. Like, for example, calendulas. Somebody was telling me about calendulas earlier. And, that's such an easy one. Like the seeds are right there. You just you bring them in, let them dry in the shade, and, 2 weeks, and that's it, right? You can place a white cloth underneath and, see what falls on your white cloth, and that's your seed. It can be very small, right? So I'm showing actually here on the left, I'm showing anise hyssop. Any of you grow anise hyssop by any chance? Okay, I don't see any hands, but anyway, I love anise hyssop. It's a native plant from the prairies, and but it grows readily here in Ontario. So I know there's different time zones, so probably different growing zones. So here we are 4B, 5A, and I can hear the laughter, people in Victoria there. Huh? They must be saying, okay, so we're 5A here in Ottawa. And so anise hyssop does well here. It's touch and go if it gets really cold in the winter though. But if you have your seed, you'll be okay. It's very fragrant. It's a magnet for pollinators. It's a beautiful plant. I really, really like it. And you can even save the leaves and make tea with it. It's kind of refreshing. Anyway, the problem with native plants is not so much harvesting the seed. Like, I just wanted to touch here on winter sowing. That's where I'm going. That's what I'm talking about. And for somebody who's in Vancouver or Victoria, this may not be so relevant. For anybody that's more in Toronto or maybe the prairies too. Anyway, I guess I need to brush up on my zones here. Anyway, so you would, in a place like this here in Toronto or Ottawa, you would definitely try winter sowing to start them. Native plants are naturally dormant and stay dormant unless they go through an actual winter. So you can go through this whole charade of putting your seed like between two sandpapers, and then put them in the fridge for 1 week, and then the freezer for another week, and back and forth. It's really quite a job, right? The stratification can be a long process, and because you need to break dormancy. That's the whole idea, right? But if you are doing winter sowing, so that is an excellent method. And you know what? You won't need to go through this stratification and scarification. It would just happen naturally. So winter sowing, so let's say the 3rd week of January, you don't have anything to do in the garden anymore. So at that point, you can take, let's say, a plastic, the thing that the lettuce comes in. I don't know if you have that out west, but anyway, it's like a clam shell kind of thing. Okay, so put soil in there, moist soil, put your seed on top, and close it and put it outside. And in April, you'll see your seed is growing, like your native plant seed, right? So you won't have to go through this whole trouble of as I was explaining earlier. So winter sowing, I mean, there are Facebook, pages about winter sowing. So it's gaining quite a bit of popularity. It's an interesting one, and it's so easy. So easy and fun. Last year, we started, of course, anise hyssop with it, but you can start just about any native plant. It works. Okay, ethical seed collection. Let's talk about ethical seed collection for a moment. I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to start with that. And so my place, I usually am on garden visits. Like, we do these garden tours, right? The Horticulture Society organizes garden tours. So people come, like, 60 people come and visit your garden, and they say, oh, that's so pretty. Oh, okay. So nice, right? So I like that, right? But anyway, one year I had all these people in my garden, and don't I see somebody that I know reach out into my black hollyhocks and grab a seed pod and quickly put it in her pocket. And I just thought, what? Is this woman doing that? She could have asked me, you know? So that's what I'm talking about. Be conscious of where you are. You know, when you're visiting somewhere else, or if you're, let's say, a public place, be conscious. This is not your garden. This is not necessarily your place. So ask for permission. You know, I find that it goes a long way asking for permission. Like that woman that was reaching in my black hollyhocks, I could have given her a bag. If she had asked, I would have given her a bag. I would have said, sure, yes, take it. Some public places like provincial parks, conservation areas, public trails have rules against foraging. And people say, why? They're not going to miss a couple of seed. And the thing is, seed in a provincial park is actually somebody's food. It's, you know, there's going to be a bird that needs this food when the winter comes. There's going to be another animal that's going to need the seed. So that's what it is, right? That the whole point is to save the seed, to leave the seed in place so that they can feed something, right, when the winter comes. So resist that urge to pick the seed. All right, I've said it. Done. Okay, storing seed. So I forgot to bring my box, but my seed box. So this is what it looks like. My seed box, like that picture on the left, is how I store my seed. So everything is organized by month and by date of seeding. So like at the front here, I have like January, I'm going to seed some onions. February, I'm not seeding anything. March, the 1st of March, I'm going to seed some, what am I going to seed? I'm going to seed some broccoli, peppers. I'm going to seed a few things anyway, celery. I'm going to seed that in usually early March. You know, and then there will be the 3rd week of March, and then the end of March, and then there's April. So each one of those baggies is a separate date. And so I know that at the right date, I need to reach out for that bag and I can start my stuff. You know, Dulce, my friend Dulce, Portuguese, that I was telling you about, her seed organizing looks a little bit different. That's okay, but I just find it's easier. You know, you don't have to sort through your whole box. You can just, you know, and if everything is correctly labeled, then you know what you're doing. Glass jars are best. I find glass jars, they contain a lot of seed. You can put a lot of seed in there. So there's a lot of capacity in a glass jar. But I use paper envelopes, and that works. Some people store their seed in a small fridge. I don't find that I need that. I can just, you know, my basement's cool enough. I store them in the basement, and it's cool enough that it's fine. Sorted by date, I was just explaining that. Label, make sure you have your species, your variety, what year you harvested, because as you know, seed does, you know, it loses its vitality after a while, right? So if you've harvested the seed in 2012, you know, there might be some difficulties in germination. Maybe not. I mean, you know, people often ask, you know, I have those seeds from, let's say, 5 years ago. Should I just throw it? I don't think you should throw it. I think you can try it and see if it emerges, you know, if it... So seed will lose its vitality, its germination capacity, but you know, it will lose it, but not 100%. Usually you'll get a few, you know, that are coming through. When you buy a seed packet from the store, you are usually counting on about 80% germination. So that's, you know, that's pretty well, their warranty is 80%. Maybe even 90%, but after a few years, you might still get 40% germination, 20%, you might get something anyway. So don't throw out your old seed, especially if you like it. Okay, and another idea is to write down where you've picked that seed is a good idea. It's just so that you know that if it was harvested, let's say, in Toronto, it might not have the same capacity if you start growing it in Ottawa. It's not the same temperature at all. Okay. Seed libraries. Now, this is the homework part. So how this works is, so this is the Osgood Seed Library, first of all. Here at the south end of Ottawa, I'm at the south end of Ottawa. All the libraries have one of those little stands here in the spring. They pull it out, they put it out, about in March. And, and then the people make donations. People, like I know I contribute a lot of seed. And there's also some seed companies that provide seed packets as well. And usually it's not like this, it's like last year's supply. So you're not going to get your 80% germination, but you might get 60% though. So I really encourage you to check out your own library and talk to the librarian and see if they do that for you. Like, it should be free of charge. It's community-based. As I said, there's many people like me that actually contribute those little brown packets at the bottom left there, there's several of us that contribute like this, and I think it just fosters a sharing value. Like, it just like, that's what I was talking about, the community resilience, like, I think this is what we need to do. Like, it's one of the things we need to do anyway, sharing and talking to other people that have the same kind of values. I think it's important that we do that. Anyway, certain libraries, so in Ottawa, there's an Ottawa library for a seed library. I think they expect that, let's say you take tomatoes, they expect that you'll bring some tomatoes a year at the end of the year. So they expect you'll bring tomato seed at the end of the year, end of the season. And they also give seminars to explain to people how to save seed, so I think it's well done. I think it's great that they do that. But sometimes you have to nudge them a little bit, hey, where's your seed tree? Okay.
Dad, I hate to interrupt because this is so awesome and I'm learning so much, but we are 5 past now. So I just wanted to check in with the time and see if we can wrap up soon.
Yeah, I'm going to wrap just about now. CD Saturday, I hope you do that too. That's another one. I know that all over Ontario, we do CD Saturday. And that's another good way of sharing with other people. Seed vault, seed banks, that's how you know how important it is. The seed is important. There's a place called Plant Gene Resources Canada that's in Saskatchewan. And they have like all the seeds that are agricultural seed, but also native plants. And if there was a catastrophe of some sort, then this is how you restart your agricultural economy, I guess, So there's this place in Saskatchewan, and of course you must have heard of Svalbard. With there's 1,214,000 seeds from all over the world there. It's the insurance policy to secure the foundation of our future food supply. My bibliography, if you want to do a screen shot there, or I can send a list. I just wanted to say, for those in Ontario or anywhere else, actually, the OMA-FRA, so that's the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs, they have a fantastic handbook online, great resource, and I really encourage you to check it out. Okay, and that's it. I am done. And this is where you can find us. And here we go, done. Okay, so this is this is where you can find us.
So a huge thank you again to Odette for that fabulous presentation. I'm just going to wrap us up now with a few concluding points about why to save seeds in your therapeutic horticulture program. So the first is, as we heard tonight from Odette, it saves you a lot of money. So instead of having to go out and buy and order seeds, you'll be able to save your own and use that money for other things. Or as we know in therapeutic horticulture, our budgets are often so limited. So that's a big win for sure there. It's also a pretty zero cost or low cost activity to actually save seeds with clients. As we heard from Odette, the materials list is quite basic and a lot of materials you're likely to have on hand already. As we also heard, it's such a sustainable practice to be doing this in our gardens and with our clients. So it's a great way to introduce this topic of sustainability, which can spur on to a lot of different other conversations that are important to be having in our work. In terms of some of the benefits for clients, you know, it can promote fine motor skills and hand-eye coordination. And if done in a group setting or in pairs, it can really help to promote teamwork. And then, of course, clients are learning new horticulture skills or practicing or relearning old skills. And then it also offers a nice avenue for further engagement. So this activity can lead to a lot of other steps or other activities. I love to pack up seeds for gifts with clients, you know, decorate seed envelopes, use that template that we have in the database for seed envelopes, cut those out, glue those, have some fun with that. It can also be really therapeutic to, you know, sort seeds that have already been saved. So if you have them laid out on trays, you can have, let's say you have a bunch of different types of beans, you could have your participants sort through the different types of seeds and organize them by different types. And then, of course, sharing the seeds is so much fun. So sharing these with the community, sharing them with staff, family members, it's a really beautiful thing to be able to do. And then you could also do something like a seed swap or a seed sharing event in early spring as well. And then finally, the last point I was going to share is that it really does involve participants in the entire growing process. So it's not seed to table, it's even further than that. It's the entire growing process. So I think that's a really great opportunity for clients to get engaged with. So those are some of the benefits. Of course, there's many more. Feel free to share in the forums if there's some other ways you like to use this activity, or tips or tricks, or some of the benefits you've seen. I did also just want to remind everyone that we have a simple seed saving activity in the activity database in the Growth Network. It includes easy to follow step-by-step instructions as well as a materials list. It also offers a list of some simple seeds to save for beginners, such as calendula, sunflowers, dill, and beans. It also includes a ready-to-use printable seed envelope template. You can see in this picture here from a session saving sunflower seeds with a group. That's the pack there, and it has a place to put, you know, what you harvested and where it was harvested from and the date. And then this also includes a list of some recommended complementary activities as well. So some activities that you could use in conjunction with this to build a nice cohesive session. And finally, before we wrap up for tonight, I just wanted to remind everyone about some of our upcoming events. We have our next peer support call on October 3rd at 12:30 Eastern Time. These calls, again, are just casual drop-in style calls where we catch up, we troubleshoot issues, share successes, share tips and challenges, things like that. So we have one on October 3rd and then November 7th, same time there again, 12:30 Eastern. And then in October, we have a special presentation that I'm going to be presenting, the top 10 therapeutic horticulture activity ideas. So hopefully we will see you at some of these events. Just a reminder, you don't need to register or anything. Go to the events tab in the Growth Network and you'll be able to read about the events there, as well as find the Zoom link in the events as well there. So huge thank you again to Odette and for everyone that attended tonight and that is watching the recording. Please feel free to reach out to Alexis or I anytime if you have ideas for a guest speaker call or just want to connect further. So thanks again, everyone, and have a great night.